As you may be aware, the Pat Nolan Center for Justice has been focusing on a very important case that's happening in Oklahoma. This is the Julius Jones case. Yesterday, Matt had an opportunity to speak with Julius's lawyer. He's being held on death row. He's scheduled to be executed November 18th. And so we are praying for the governor of Oklahoma to make the right decision, to re-examine the evidence of this case. And so, I think it's really important to be able to bring in the people who know Julius and can talk about what he's going through, what's happened with this case. And so it's really my great honor to have on the show his spiritual advisor, Minister Keith Jossell, who's joining us today on CPAC Now. Keith, thank you for being on our show.
Mercy, thank you for having us, and I want to thank all of you that are involved with CPAC and the Justice Center for really leaning into this case and really making your viewers aware of what's happening here in Oklahoma.
I think one of the things that's important to understand, Keith, is that, during my days working at the White House, President Trump, along with Republicans and Democrats, came together for significant criminal justice reform changes. And, you read testimonies of individuals who have really been sentenced to what I would say are just wrong sentences or too long of a sentence. And we really had to make significant changes in our justice system because every human being matters and their dignity of life. And we believe in this concept of redemption. So I really would like for you to share with us, first of all, who is Julius Jones? Why are we hearing about this case right now, and how did you get involved in this case?
Well, Julius Jones is a 41-year-old man that is innocent, wrongfully convicted of a murder of a Edmond, Oklahoma businessman, Paul Howe. It was a senseless death. It's been a tragedy. The pain that the Howell family is feeling, the sister and the two daughters who were with Paul Howe that evening, words cannot describe the pain that any of us would be feeling if we had gone through that type of traumatic event. The issue in this case is that Julius wasn't there. He wasn't part of it. He was actually at home with his family. They were getting ready to celebrate his birthday. Julius's co-defendant, Christopher Jordan, while in prison, actually confessed to 4 different inmates that he was the one that actually murdered Paul Howe. Julius wasn't there. Julius was framed and set up for the murder. And so we are here today waiting the governor's decision on whether or not he is going to accept his pardon and parole board's recommendation of changing Julius's death sentence to a life sentence.
No.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I came to know Julius because I was his Bible teacher when he was arrested in 1999. 22 years ago, like many in our community, and I'm sure like your viewers, I believe that if someone was arrested, they were guilty. If they are convicted, they must be guilty. I didn't know that there is an estimated 75 to 85,000 people in Oklahoma today, according to the Oklahoma Innocence Project, that are wrongfully convicted. I didn't know 22 years ago that we have a 50% reversal of those sentenced to death in Oklahoma. And I didn't know that at least 10 people had been exonerated in Oklahoma from death row, even though they were arrested and found guilty. So even though I knew Julius, I believed he was guilty until a documentary came out called The Last Offense that showed all of us that there was so much reasonable doubt in this case. So when you talk about redemption, Mercy, I felt like this was redemption for me. I had an opportunity to step back into Julius' life and to be able to walk with him wherever this was going to go, hopefully with him being able to come back with his
So
family.
what happened in the case? We were hearing that they didn't accept certain evidence in the case itself. What's your sense as to why, in the court itself they didn't deal with this issue?
Well, it starts with underfunded and overworked public defenders. Julius had a public defender who unfortunately died a couple of months before the trial was to begin. Another public defender was assigned. There was not a continuance for him to catch up with what had already transpired over the last 2 years. He has admitted that he had a bad day when he was defending Julius. And in fact, the defense team did not present a case at all, but simply said the defense rest. And afterwards, we did hear from jurors who said Julius must be guilty because the defense did not present a case. There was no evidence of him being at the crime scene. His fingerprints are not on the gun. The two primary witnesses for the prosecution were professional informants for the prosecution's office that both received prison leniency for their testimony to Julius. And in fact, when they were being interrogated about the murder the first, second, and third times, they never mentioned that Julius was a part of the crime. It wasn't until it was suggested in the fourth interview by the interrogator that it could be Julius Jones that these two professional informants began to point the finger to Julius.
So let me ask you, you've spoken to Julius a number of times. How is he doing? How does his faith hold him up during this difficult time?
Well, Julius has a wonderful family that has stayed with him and stuck with him for 22 years. But as he and I talked about today, Mercy, if it was not for his faith in God and believing that God has been with him for the last 22 years, Julius would not be a sane individual. He is an incredible left brain, right brain intellect. He knows the Bible backwards and forward. There are times where I come in and I'm frustrated, and he will flip to a scripture in the Bible and remind me of the promises of God. We talk about this song by the gospel singer Marvin Sapp, "Never Would Have Made It." Never would have made it without you. He recognizes that it is only his faith that has kept him through this roller coaster justice system ride. Just on October 28th, he was just 2 cells removed from another inmate that was executed in the state of Oklahoma by the name of John Grant. He saw the press conference right after the execution, where there were witnesses who were talking about the fact that John Grant had 24 convulsions and was regurgitated twice while on the gurney, with doctors having to come and wipe his mouth during the execution. He's gone through all of this, and yet, as he said to me today, life is going to get better for me because God is with me, and I trust that and I believe that.
So, Keith, you talked about the family and the fact that they have stood by Julius. They've provided so much support for him during this difficult time. How are they holding up? And what's their message to the governor?
You know, it's been difficult. Antoinette, his sister, has characterized it as been hell. For so long, it was just the family that was trying to push this weight up the mountain for people to listen and hear the facts about this case, that their son, their brother, was innocent. They're so grateful for so many different people across the world, and for your organization leaning in and getting and amplifying their voice. But it's been difficult because while the Jones family has said from day one, and Julius has said this as well, that their heart breaks for the Howell family, it's been hard to have people share that same kind of emotion for what the Jones family has gone through. not being able to hug their son, their brother for over 20 years, for him not being part of their life and the ceremonies and the celebrations that are occurring in their lives. And now, where all of us who are close to him, we just received letters yesterday requesting our presence at his execution at 4 o'clock on November 18th, that we've had to answer the questions of who's going to be in the room, what his last meal is going to be, what is going to be done with his remains. And so the trauma that he is experiencing, although he experiences it the greatest, they are experiencing a similar type of trauma that really no family should have to go through. If they had the opportunity to be able to speak to the governor, their words would be to him is to really rely on his faith, to really, as we do believe that God is a God of justice. And without justice for all, without justice for the Howell family, justice for the Jones family, and justice for the citizens of Oklahoma who don't believe in executing a wrongfully convicted human being, without justice for all of them, there is no true justice. We are begging, we are pleading, we are imploring the governor to believe that freedom comes from seeking truth, and that the word of God is clear on this. Without truth, there can be no freedom. And our system of justice should be focused on that. And so we want him to protect the integrity of our justice system here in Oklahoma, restore the confidence of the people. Biblical truth must be the goal, not political motivations.
Yeah, and I think it's this case is really uniting conservatives, liberals, people of Oklahoma who are watching this, because no innocent man should be put to death, and no wrongfully accused man should be put to death. And so, we stand with you here at CPAC and the Nolan Center for Justice to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, like Julius Jones, to be able to stand by them and really plead to the governor to really re-examine the evidence and not move forward with this execution. This is something that, as the more people study about the flaws of our criminal justice system, and look, as Republicans, I'll tell you, and conservatives, public safety is critical, but you got to make sure the criminal justice system actually works. And it should be just and fair. And this is obviously not the case for Julius Jones. So any last words you want to share with our viewers on this case, on your journey alongside Julius Jones?
Well, first of all, let me just say, Mercy, thank you. Thank CPAC. Thank the Nolan Center for Justice for really taking the time to amplify this case to all of your viewers. The last thing that I would want to say to all of you is that I really hope that you will get the opportunity one day to be able to meet the man that I know, Julius Darius Jones. He is a genius. He's authored 2 books. He is a poet. He is an artist. He is a designer. He can talk about history, ancient civilization. He can talk about the law of God, the mercy of God, in postgraduate level thinking and thought. And it is so impressive. If you met him and you had a conversation with him, Mercy, you would not believe that this individual could possibly have been incarcerated for 22 years. That's just how much God has kept him and shown favor on his life. And I want everybody to know that Julius already is mentoring people while he is in prison. He is already working with young people to communicate to them and to share with them. Don't make the mistakes that I made as a 17 and 18-year-old kid. I don't want you to even be close to being in a potential situation where you could end up like I am. And he has committed the rest of his life, whatever amount of time that is, to be able to make a difference in young people's lives so that they can fulfill the possibilities and purpose that God has for them. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to just share with everybody this incredible human being, Julius Darius
Well,
Jones.
thank you, Minister. You have one of the toughest jobs and one of the most important jobs. for Julius Jones as he's going through this very challenging times. And I encourage all of you to visit conservativejusticereform.org/Oklahoma. You can actually send a petition to the governor of Oklahoma. And, you know, we really need our grassroots activists to come out and make their voices known, especially if you're living in the state of Oklahoma. And we'll continue to follow this case very closely. Minister Keith Jossell, thank you so much for joining us on CPAC Now.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying with us. We just spoke with Minister Keith Jossell. He is a spiritual advisor for Julius Jones. And you ask us, why are we doing this? Why is CPAC involved in this? Why is the Nolan Center for Justice involved in Julius Jones's case? And I tell you, when you read the story, when you understand that there was questionable evidence that was not, they didn't include the evidence in this case, it's important for us to speak up. There's a lot of people that are in jail today who have been wrongfully accused, and they deserve a second chance. They deserve to have their voices heard. Because it impacts not only the person in jail, it also impacts their families who have been supporting them, praying for them, being their voice. And I am so honored to have Mrs. Jones joining us today on CPAC Now. Mrs. Jones, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, tell us about Julius Jones, your son.
Well, Julius is a typical, was young man, and he's very, I'll say he's like, let me see, can I tell you about Julius? He's kind, caring, I'll say like your son, a father, an uncle. He's a lot of things, but he's kind, good-hearted, and he's a good person.
So, you know, we've seen in this particular case that he's being held on this questionable evidence. What can you tell us in terms of why the governor of Oklahoma, Kevin Stitt, should re-examine this evidence?
Oh, if he looks at the evidence and just studies it well, you know, like they say, the truth. And if he looks at it from all points of view, not just in leadership, but how can I say it? If he looks at the evidence, it shouldn't be questionable, you know, and like you say, there's so many loose ends. And I realize that he's taking his time and trying to look at all the evidence, but if he looks at the evidence, it shouldn't be questionable. That's my point of view.
So let me ask you, Mrs. Jones, your family, what have you all gone through in these past 22 years?
Oh, Lord, we've gone through a lot of things. It's kind of like stock market. Julius, I think about it, out of my 3 children, he's that center part. He's the glue that binds, the peacemaker. We've just been through a lot. This unbelievable. It's like a nightmare that you can't seem to wake up from.
So how are you able to keep it together? How are you able to get up every morning and say, we're going to keep fighting for Julius. We're going to keep speaking up on his behalf?
Well, first of all, my faith. And I thank God every day that I get up, that I know where he was at that time. And that's the little thing that just keeps me going. My mother always said something real little was going to bring him home. And sometimes you don't understand what your elders are saying or talking about before she left. But I can get up every morning knowing that he's innocent and that I know where he was at that time. And my faith in God, my trust, and it's just so many things. It's overwhelming, but that's how I know.
So we're down to the 35 days before the execution. He's been put on death watch, and it really plays such a horrific psychological, it has a huge psychological impact on him. Have you been able to talk to him? And also, what does that mean to be on death watch? Can you explain that to our viewers?
I'm going to give you my definition. It's very inhumane, degrading, and as an educator, it's not positive, and it takes away the person. It's like, how can I say? There's 24 hours of just light, and you know, you need a balance in your life, a little bit of darkness there. And when I think about death watch, it's kind of hard to really explain, but I think about the type of child that Julius is and was, that he's going through a lot, or rather just anyone. You have someone that's watching you, even when you have to take care of personal things, you're under a surveillance camera. And it's like you're nobody. It's very, to me, degrading. It's like you're nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. What is your message when, you know, if someone's sitting at their home, they're watching this interview, what's your message to them? What do you want them to know about Julius?
I want them to know that he is a good person. He has a lot of fine qualities. He's just like your child or your brother, your sister, your uncle, your father. He's a good person. He's a human being. And sometimes you make mistakes by the company that you keep. And, you know, you learn you can't befriend everyone. And sometimes you think you know people, but you don't. We all are human. But I'd like them to just kind of put themselves in Julius's shoes, or anyone that would be, you know, confined and not be able to see the sunlight, the real sunlight, be able to have the freedom to make your own choices just by one little mistake, you know, of knowing someone. Like it's often have been said, even if you're not guilty, you're guilty of association. You know, that's frightening when I think about it for young people in our youth, you know. But I just like for them to just think about it. And
What's your message to Julius?
oh, my message to Julius, that I love him, and I'm very proud of him. Staying the course, knowing that he's innocent, and staying with it. And really, it's just, the last time that I talked to him, he's in good spirits. He encourages me. And just that I love him.
In your wanting to talk to the governor and have these conversations, we are all with you, Mrs. Jones. We're with your family here at CPAC and at the Nolan Center for Justice. There's so many of us, just from different political aisles, coming together to stand up for justice for Julius. And so, what do you want to share in terms of what you think the governor should do, and what what's your message to the governor?
Well, first of all, I am so happy that there's so many people that have taken the time to find out about my son, to want to know more and to want to know the truth. And even though I would like to personally sit down and talk to the governor, I know he's a very busy person and everything. I just like him to know that oh Lord, it's just so hard. But it makes me feel good to know that people want to know and they're concerned. And that's part of the American dream that I feel. And it lets you know that there are people that are concerned. They want to know both sides. They want to know the truth. And I'm believing and trusting because he's a faith person, as I am. He has a family. And leadership, even when I was in leadership, various things, you do the right thing and you don't have a problem with making the final and righteous decision. So I'd like for him to do the right thing, to take my son, and I know it's a hard decision, and to think about it and maybe mirror. And if he was in my shoes, I have a lot of respect for him, and I'm glad that he's taken the time to not just make a big, quick decision, and then for him to think about the people that he has assigned to help him to make those decisions. And hopefully those people are faith-believing people and they want to do the right thing. And I just feel like that if he does the right thing, that we won't have to worry about anything on either side.
Well, Mrs. Jones, I want to thank you for sharing your story and your story about your son, Julius. We're all praying for your family. I know this must be very tough for all of you, but you're not alone, and we are standing with you, and we will help you get through this. And we want those who are interested in helping this cause and sending a note, a letter to the governor of Oklahoma. You go to conservativejusticereform.org/Oklahoma. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and God bless.